imitation. My head always makes that sound. Okay. Welcome to our recording of the Polite Society podcast. Oh, now I'm getting feedback from YouTube. Thank you. I guess that's working. Very first thing, I'd like to thank our sponsors, ABN Surplus, Concealment Solutions, Crusader Weaponry, New Jersey Second Amendment Society, and the Firearms Safety Institute. We don't have any interviews today because I've been too busy running around like a nut. What has changed, you ask? Well, it feels different from my side.
You've been weightlifting books.
I've been... Oh.
I like that. No need to join a gym. Just become a mover. You know, shuffle stuff around every now and then.
That's right. We'll just rotate the library every month or so. Strong one box.
You know, if it was all on Kindle, it wouldn't weigh as much.
That's my buddy goes, I propose you sell all this and copy it to Kindle.
Put it on Kindle. It's not the same. It's totally not the same as having real books.
I would agree.
Well, my wife... Did you know that there are 31 volumes of the written works of John C. Calhoun?
No, I did not know that.
She has those?
Oh, has them, read them, has commented on them at conferences, and that's not even her field. That's just like...
Well, actually, I saw Calhoun's grave, which used to be just down the road from my cousins in South Carolina. He believed in the concurrent majority.
I'm not sure what that means, but my wife would. Let's go ahead and... Oh. John, do you mind if I ask about Barb joining us at GRPC, or should I not? Is that too much?
Oh, she's not. She won't be able to get away from work.
Okay.
Yeah, new job. Even though she's building time off,
Well, then...
It's not as easy.
Then I'll leave it in as the question and yeah, anyway.
But the only room available for me, unless I wanted a suite or something, has only one bed. So.
Yeah, I figured I would order. I was in a double because I figured, you know, well, Paul already volunteered himself to join me, and then I figured, good, if more folks join us, we'll move up to a suite.
They have some nice suites.
Okay, let's cover that when we... 5 seconds. Welcome to the Polite Society podcast, recorded live on Wednesday, July 30th, 2014. I'm Rob Morse.
I'm Rachel Malone, and on tonight's show we have our self-defense news.
I'm John Richardson, and we'll talk about defensive gun use.
So climb aboard.
Strap in.
And hang on. Episode 256 of the Polite Society podcast starts right now. John, you want to take us in?
Yeah. I was thinking we could make our own little music with our...
Yeah, I'm hearing music in my head.
Yeah. Okay, in 5. Hi, and welcome to the personal news segment of the Polite Society podcast. I'll start off. What I've done in guns this last few days. Well, I registered for the Gun Rights Policy Conference, finally. I booked my room and bought my plane ticket. Actually, and I was lucky enough, and I could not believe it, I have a direct flight from Asheville to Chicago.
That's great.
If you know Asheville, that's pretty unusual because it's usually unusual. You can't get there from here.
You thought it was what? Atlanta or
Charlotte?
Charlotte, okay. Yeah.
Yep.
But John, is Barb going to join us this year?
Not this year. She's with a new job. She just can't get away.
Okay. Okay. Well, I've booked a room. I booked a double, and Paul was going to join us. If more folks want to pile in, you know, we'll upgrade to a suite. but I haven't booked my plane ticket yet, so it's a good reminder. Rachel, I assume life is a little sketchy to bail for a long weekend to Chicago for the Gun Rights Policy Conference.
It is. Besides the fact that I don't know why you guys want to go to Chicago, we talk about how many deaths happen there every weekend. But putting that aside, yeah, it's pretty full right now. I'll have to probably wait for y'all's report.
Darn it. Well, my life, my real life gets in the way of firearms training. I really have some things I want to train with. I'll talk about that later. But I've been boxing up a few thousand pounds of books as we do some home repairs. The closest I got was I went to a gun store while a friend bought his wife a small Walther that he had imported into California. Crazy state.
Yep. Well, hey, you're getting your own workout time, right? Moving all those books.
Yes.
I remember growing up, my family was doing construction on our house for several years because my dad was doing a lot of the work himself. And so there were a few times during various points in the construction when we kids had to pack up everything and move it on pretty quick notice. And we would joke that we should sell memberships to our fitness club and make people pay us to move boxes up and down the stairs. We had the whole thing planned out. It was pretty cool, but we never actually did it.
So it's the Tom Sawyer version of
Yes.
of
Yes.
a moving crew. Now,
Exactly.
not
It's
just
how
anybody
can
can
we...
pack.
Yes.
That's great.
Exactly.
It kind of reminds me of grad school when I had a pickup truck. You know how popular you are in a college town if you have a pickup truck?
Oh yeah.
With people moving all the time.
Mhm. See, there's some really good things about driving a small car that's a standard because nobody else can drive it. They can't borrow it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Rachel, any
yes.
news?
Over here, and I haven't had a lot of action on anything with guns or politics for the most part. I've pretty much just been turning things down because I'm too busy to do what comes up on both guns and politics. And I still haven't gotten my AR fixed. That's still on the list, and my parts are still here for me to look at. But the one thing I did do, I got some planning done for an introductory firearms course that I'm teaching. It'll be part of a girls' camp next week, and it's actually a girls' camp that I lead, and I host it here at the farm where I live. It's called Academy 31.
And you've got a link in our show notes. Good on you.
I sure do. Yeah.
Good on you.
So, getting ready to teach them firearms, plus a whole host of other things, and getting ready to have about 15 or 20 girls descend on us in the next few days. Looking forward to that.
Well, you are going to be busy.
Yeah, just a little. But what's new? I always am.
Okay. Well,
nothing new there.
If that's the end of the news, we'll go to a break and come back with our self-defense news. Okay, John.
No comments yet on YouTube.
Oh, Rachel, did you check the live page?
The Q&A page?
No, the
Where?
on the Polite Society podcast website, there's a live page.
Oh.
Periodically, I
Sorry,
hear
didn't
something
catch
rattle
that.
in the background. Is it a fan?
Yeah, I can shut off the fan.
No.
Kids, I can't shut off the fan.
No, stop. Jeez. You ask him.
What?
Is that your real hair color? I can dye it. No, I'm just asking questions. Don't change anything.
It's probably the fan. Yeah, the fan does rattle.
Okay, great. Whenever you're ready, John.
Alrighty. In 5. Hi, and welcome to the news segment of the Polite Society podcast. In our first story, we had reported about on Saturday that in Palmer versus District of Columbia, Judge Frederick Scullin Jr. had found that the District of Columbia's ban on carry of a firearm outside the home was unconstitutional. As we suspected, the District of Columbia was going to apply for a stay, and they were granted their stay on Tuesday. While they had requested a 180-day stay, Judge Scullin only granted them 90 days, or half the amount. The plaintiffs, the winning party, had previously said they wouldn't object to a 90-day stay if the city used that time to enact remedial legislation that was consistent with constitutional standards. As it was, residents and visitors to D.C. did have a couple of days in which they could provide for their own self-defense before the decision was stayed. As we discussed on Saturday, the city is weighing its options, and in my opinion, they probably will appeal the decision.
Yeah, I think you're right. It took a couple days for me to really understand that case. One of the defendants did not live in D.C., and that is why the judge really was forced to rule that visitors retain the right of self-defense even when they visit D.C. The judge made that as part of his judgment, that D.C. grant reciprocity so that non-residents can carry in the district. The great news is that moves us much closer to universal reciprocity. This ruling is unfortunately a little less than it appears. The law that was struck down regulated concealed carry. D.C. still has bizarre laws about magazine capacity and other firearms restrictions. Unless I'm a registered D.C. gun owner, it remains illegal for me to have a spent cartridge case somewhere in my car, because that is deemed an unlawful ammunition component. Of course, I can't register my firearm in D.C. to make it a legally registered component. Now, I assume those crazy laws still stand and are ready to trap any gun owner passing through D.C. Travelers, beware. Another thought on the funny, humorous side is that it took 5 years to get a judicial decision. Too bad it didn't take, well, at least 4 years for the judge to grant a stay.
Those are some really good points there, Rob. Especially the bizarre law about a spent cartridge case being illegal.
Yeah, isn't it ridiculous?
My pockets and purses and bags and everything in my car, kind of drip spent cartridge cases.
do you, my washing machine and dryer don't eat socks, but I swear they create cases, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
I wish now if I could get it to turn spent cases into quarters, I'd have something.
Now that would be something. Yeah, so I think you and I better both stay out of DC. So let me get this straight here. So nothing bad happened on the one evening when DC residents could legally take their guns for a walk?
Nope.
The Potomac River didn't run red with blood?
Nope.
No gun owners from Pennsylvania and Virginia were robbing the disarmed people of DC?
That would be no again.
No columns of smoke rising from the armed riots?
No.
No guys running around like Mad Max in the apocalypse?
I can't confirm that, but not that I've seen.
Yeah, I didn't think so. So I guess maybe DC was a little bit sort of like Texas for a few hours?
Well, actually, in my opinion, it was a little bit more like North Carolina because we can open carry handguns. They could not open carry long arms. So.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. All right. Thanks for the reminder. We are working on it. Texas isn't perfect. It's just really close. Sort of.
Yeah. From California.
I still like Texas.
From California, it's looking pretty good.
Well, good. We will welcome you anytime, Rob. And here at the podcast, we work really hard. We try to bring you accurate news affecting self-defense, and we do not bring you propaganda or fantasies. However, it looks like the National Broadcasting Corporation does exactly that. The anti-gun media just couldn't let the defensive gun use story of psychiatrist Silverman go unchallenged. So NBC ran a hit piece masquerading as news where they interviewed psychiatrists about the efficacy of armed self-defense. Here are the money quotes. Hang on, these are good. The headline was, "Experts say psychiatrists with guns likely more harmful than helpful." Because, of course, that's what we saw from the story, right? Well, from the article, here's a quote. "The idea of a psychiatrist having a weapon in his desk is entirely new to me. I haven't heard of anything like it before." Here's another quote. "My guess is that arming psychiatrists is more likely to be harmful than helpful." Did you hear that? My guess? Why are we guessing? There is no need for these so-called experts to remain ignorant or to offer us their guesses because we have many years of self-defense experience under real-world conditions. We report on these stories twice a week here at the podcast. And at worst, the data shows that armed citizens cause no harm, and they save lives at best. A psychiatrist claiming otherwise is, well, crazy.
Yeah. Doctors being crazy. Psychiatrists being crazy. Isn't there some comment about doctor heal yourself first?
Sounds good to me.
If you say to me that you've got stupid gun laws in Burlington, well, there are many Burlingtons, and I think of the Burlington, Vermont City Council. They're the most famous. But had you said Burlington, Iowa, well, you'd be right there too. The Burlington City Council considered regulations demanding city permission before children could have toy guns, replica guns, and BB guns in public. Violators would be subject to a $500 fine. The city would also demand that toy guns be carried in a gun case when transported in a car. The excuse was that it was better to outlaw toy guns than to train police to determine, well, difficult things like opportunity, intent, and capability. I guess that allows the police to shoot on sight if they see a gun because they don't need to consider anything else. This is extremely strange because we require Iowa concealed license holders to determine opportunity, intent, and capability on a daily basis when they carry. And we think nothing of it. The Des Moines County Attorney is probably at fault for tolerating the stupidity, though luckily the regulation was voted down by the city.
When I listened to that story...
Rob.
Yeah?
Wow.
I should tell you what I really feel? What?
Okay, so seriously, Rob, we're talking about a toy gun, like a plastic toy gun.
Yes.
And replicas and BB guns, and we're talking about outlawing those as opposed to training police. And you're sure this isn't April Fool's, and you're just kind of
this is
teasing
not
everybody with something that's so absurd. Of course, everybody knows it's a joke.
This is not The Onion.
This is the kind of thing you could make up.
Yeah, I could.
On April Fool's.
I could, but no. This is and it was just amazing to hear the city council woman go, "Oh, we got some very harsh comments. I don't really think they understand the good that we intended." No, we get it. You don't like guns.
Wow. I don't understand the good they intended.
Yeah.
What's that old saying? The road to hell is paved with good intentions?
Or at least liberal fantasies sometimes. It's just crazy out there.
But, a whole generation of kids my age, 5-year-olds, would have been dead because we carried our cap guns in our open holsters along with our chaps and cowboy hats.
Man, so dangerous, John.
And our broomstick horses, I remember that.
And the caps actually had a little dab, I think, of black powder in them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Man, you're just endangering public.
How did we ever survive it?
I don't know.
Well,
glad you did.
Well, and our next story actually has a good ending. We had reported on the case of Dr. Lee Silverman, the psychiatrist in the Philadelphia area, who used a personal handgun to end an attack in a hospital. He had been shot and a coworker killed by a psychotic gunman. We speculated at the time whether or not Dr. Silverman would be fired. I mean, they do that to pizza delivery guys. Good news, he won't. Here is the statement from Mercy Health Systems on their Facebook page. We are thankful for the swift action of Dr. Lee Silverman, Dr. Jeffrey Decret, John Alonso, and the other colleagues and visitors who took brave and difficult action during yesterday's tragic event. We extend our condolences to Teresa Hunt's family, and we are praying for Dr. Silverman's speedy recovery. Here's the money quote. We look forward to Dr. Silverman's return to serving patients at our hospital. We will do all we can to support the victims during this difficult time. We continue to work with Delaware County authorities to fully understand the details of the event. We are reviewing our policies and procedures to ensure a safe environment. We are committed to serving as compassionate and healing presence in our communities, and we are grateful for the outpouring of community support.
The patient had a gun because he was a crazy criminal. The doctor had a gun because he wasn't a crazy criminal. So make sure you have this straight. The gun grabbers want the doctor disarmed so that only crazy criminals have guns. Doesn't that make you feel so much safer?
Oh, absolutely. Fortunately, that hospital was a little smarter than the gun grabbers in this case.
Yeah.
Thankfully.
Now, I heard something today that where the event occurred wasn't in what you and I think of as the ER and beds of a hospital. It was off in like the professional services wing. You know,
okay.
Oh, you need to go over here for the MRI, and it's an adjacent building. Or your blood drawn over at the lab, or you get a prescription across the street, and here's the psychiatrist's office. So, yeah, that's why they call it a campus, because hospitals tend to sprawl.
They do.
That's true. Well, you know, some of the stories we report on here and the news items make me mad. Some of them make me really confused. Some of them make me feel vindicated. Some of them are sad and they're sobering. But this next one, it just makes me happy. Because there's a culture change about the right of people to defend themselves. The female host on The View ran an anti-gun ad from Everytown for gun safety, from our friends. Not. They agreed it was an extremely emotional and effective ad showing a mother being shot during a custody dispute. But the conversation didn't stop there. 3 of the hosts went on to say they had or wanted a gun in their home for protection. They experienced the fear of a break-in or a stalker, and they wanted more than a phone for protection. And they counseled the one host who was afraid of guns with children in the home to lock it up and take a class to learn how to use it, but get a gun. Did you catch that? Get a gun. This is the advice of the host after watching that anti-gun ad. I'd say thank you for that ad. It sounds like it was very effective in promoting our side.
Yeah, it showed a woman as a victim in a violent domestic dispute.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely tragic. Powerfully emotional, but open to interpretation if you wanted to protect yourself and your family.
Yes, and I know, I mean, as a woman, if I watch that, my heart's going to be pounding, my emotions are going to come into play, and I'm going to start putting myself in that situation and thinking, okay, what would I do if I was there? Would I want a phone to grab? And I'm going to very quickly realize a phone just isn't going to cut it.
So, you know, now that people are taking selfies, smartphones have been getting bigger and bigger. So now they'll be, you know, about the size of a large monitor pretty soon, and we'll make them bulletproof, and you're supposed to hide behind it. So then a phone would be worth having.
Yeah, and you can get like a phone cover on the back that says "No guns allowed." You know, flashing no gun sign. 'Cause everybody follows the no gun signs. They just have to be big enough so you can see them.
There you go.
There you go.
Maybe we should make phone cases that actually are like concealed holsters.
Yeah. Okay. Behind your hip.
Yeah.
So you can practice presenting your phone.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that'll get. In this next news article, yes, we are bragging. I saw an article in the Washington Post where they finally covered the story of Beretta moving from neighboring Maryland to Tennessee. And I went, we covered that story so long ago that I've almost forgotten it. I guess this means we have to use small words and talk slowly when you explain a story to the Washington Post, because it takes them a while to catch on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think it also means that we've got some people here who are good at digging up stories and catching them when they come. And Rob, I'm going to give you a shout out here. I know you do a lot of work on show notes. Thank you for that. John, I know you've contributed a lot for this week. Thank you guys both for the great work you do pulling out those stories.
Rachel, I'm going to ask you, if you had the
Yeah.
time, aren't these the sort of stories you dig out?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we're just sharing the nuggets we dig up.
And I appreciate that. Moving to Alabama. Alabama's Attorney General Luther Strange is taking some heat for existing firearms legislation. The Attorney General supports legislation to ban the open carry of firearms in polling places. There were at least 3 cases where people open carried at the polls for the recent primary election, and that was when the Attorney General's office advised that government buildings that already ban guns can prohibit them when these locations double as polling places. However, the decision on whether to allow guns rests with the owners when voting takes place in churches or other private property. Strange added that whatever stands he takes on proposals before the legislature, he has the responsibility to make sure those stands are constitutional. And he cited a court ruling in the District of Columbia over the weekend, striking down the law prohibiting people from having guns in public.
This sounds like either there's some gun owners being stupid by open carrying at the polls, or there's some anti-gun citizens deliberately provoking more gun regulations. I can't decide which it is, but wait, there is more.
There sure is. Phoenix police officers arrested a 54-year-old man Friday after he pointed his AR-15 rifle in the direction of 2 people at Sky Harbor International Airport. The Tempe, Arizona man told officers he went to Sky Harbor International Airport to buy a cup of coffee and had no other business at the airport. This gun owner has been at the airport with his rifle before. In November 2013, several people alerted officers that a man armed with an AR-15 was standing in the baggage claim area, apparently waiting for a passenger to arrive. At that time, the man was not charged. He did not commit a crime by simply carrying the weapon into the common area of the airport. The recent incident was different because he took the rifle from his shoulder and muzzled 2 people. The 54-year-old gun owner now faces 2 counts of disorderly conduct with a weapon, which is a felony. I bet there's video that shows what our gun owner did. And, I'd like to see it before completely passing judgment, but if the story is true, that he took the rifle from his shoulder, he muzzled 2 people, that's wrong. Anybody who's studied any basic rules of firearm safety knows you don't do that. Always keep your muzzle in a safe direction. A few seconds of being unsafe, of breaking those safety rules, which apparently he did here, is resulting in major repercussions, not only for him, but for a lot of the rest of us too.
Yeah, I want gun owners to be great ambassadors all the time.
Yes.
Because we're under constant scrutiny.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And as I said before we went on the air, it's like there's got to be a better place than the airport to get a cup of coffee. And it's got to be cheaper because the airport has expensive parking, expensive coffee, and it's crowded. Go to McDonald's, which actually does have good coffee. Starbucks if you want. 7-Eleven. I don't get it.
Make your own coffee?
Right.
Yeah.
You can make it as strong or as weak as you like it.
That's right. Never really occurred to me to just, grab a cup of coffee at the airport, but maybe it works for some people. I don't know. To each his own. It's a free country.
It used to be a time when you could walk to the gates and watch airplanes. I did that with my kids.
I remember that. I may be young,
folks
but I
do that
still
with you?
remember. I remember going and watching my dad fly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I remember that. They had at our local airport, they had an observation deck where you could go into the airport, go up on the observation deck, and watch the planes come and go.
Yeah.
We did that a lot.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's fun. Yeah.
Well, our next story is from Oklahoma, where lawmakers say that colleges and universities would be safer if students, faculty, and staff were allowed to carry on campus. As you might expect, university administrators disagree. Representative John Innes and Senator Ralph Shorty argue that licensed gun owners should be able to protect themselves on state campuses. Innes said statistics show 20% of students will be assaulted at some time during their 4 years on campus. Quote, I hear from a lot of parents of college kids, and I hear from a lot of college kids as well, he said. For anyone to say our college campuses are safe, that's totally not true, unquote. Currently, a licensed gun owner can carry a weapon on campus only with the written consent of the college president.
Oh, and I bet that's easy to get.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so we would urge our Oklahoma listeners and those who have children who might attend schools in Oklahoma to weigh in with their support of Representative Innes and Senator Shorty, because gun-free zones are not safe for children or adolescents or college students.
Or anybody.
Right.
Well, it sounds like your voices were heard by Washington, D.C. legislators. Gun retailers are no longer on a hit list, deemed high risk by the Federal Deposit Insurance Corp. Federal banking regulators formally removed firearms dealers and manufacturers from the list of high-risk industries being punished as part of the Obama administration's Operation Choke Point. Richard Osterman, the agency's acting general counsel, admitted to the American Banker newspaper Monday that the no-fund list had been, quote, misinterpreted by financial institutions, close quote. If you empower the government to pick winners and losers within lawful enterprises, then there's no place to stop.
You know, Rob, it could have been us, or it could have been the porn industry shutting down Operation Choke Point. The political results just aren't that clear-cut. But I think somebody at the FDIC might have gotten a message.
Somebody from the legislature finally made a phone call, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, moving on from Operation Choke Point and porn stars to
Our normal
Connecticut.
topics. Right?
John's desperate. Okay, to our listeners, John's desperate for email. Go ahead, tell him what you think about that.
Connecticut gun owners are getting active and not taking gun restrictions lying down. After spending a year holding protests and challenging the law through the court system, politically active gun owners in Connecticut have focused their efforts on the August 12th primary. They want to help Greenwich businessman Tom Foley defeat State Senate Minority Leader John McKinney in the race for the Republican nomination to run for governor. Senator McKinney, a Republican, enraged gun owners with his soft support of armed self-defense. Scott Wilson is the founder and president of the Connecticut Citizens Defense League, and we've had him on the Polite Society podcast before. He said, quote, We're eager to see John McKinney out of this race as soon as possible, unquote. 80 members of the Connecticut Citizens Defense League have become voting delegates to the Connecticut Republican Party convention, where the party chose Foley over McKinney. So our friends up in the Northeast have a few weeks to get busy, actually about 2 weeks to get busy.
Good luck. I hope they toss this gentleman out that doesn't respect the right of self-defense.
Absolutely.
That's right. Mm-hmm. The one positive thing that I've definitely noticed in states where things start going south for gun rights is it really motivates gun owners to stand up. So the question is if they can gather enough momentum, get enough of them working hard enough soon enough, and hopefully they do that.
Yep.
However, even if you're in a gun-friendly state, you can still have a bad day. The cops definitely raided the wrong house in Portsmouth, Virginia. The homeowner saw a bunch of guys dressed in black on his front porch. What would you do? Well, then one of the uninvited visitors pointed a rifle at the homeowner and painted a laser on the homeowner's shirt. What would you do at that point? The homeowner got his gun and shot through the window, ran out the back, and that is when the police identified themselves and the homeowner dropped his gun. The police pressed charges against the homeowner, but thankfully a jury threw the charges out, and now the homeowner is free to sue the city.
You know, being a policeman is a dangerous job.
Yeah.
SWAT cops had an even more dangerous job. They were to be used in armed hostage situations, and now we've got them delivering subpoenas. That's stupid. They were misused. I hope the homeowner wins a huge lawsuit. This SWAT team should be fired. More importantly, so should their supervising officer.
Absolutely. So, well, it's time for our gun quote segment, and the gun quote actually comes from my home state. The maintenance of the right to bear arms is a most essential one to every free people and should not be whittled down by technical constructions. And that was from the Supreme Court of North Carolina in State v. Kerner from 1921. The importance of this case is that it was the decision that gave North Carolina, confirmed the right of North Carolinians to open carry firearms.
That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So hang on, everybody. We'll be right back after this.
Hey, Rachel,
Yes.
can you move your mic up?
You know, it wasn't staying. It was like falling down. I can see.
Okay.
Oh, let me see. Yeah, I think it's gonna stay now.
Okay.
Most
She has to get the lightweight white mic because it's so heavy it keeps falling down over. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's jump back into it.
Cool. We have quite a few DGUs. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, several anyway. Got some great. This is really good material for this show. That's good stuff to talk about. Are we ready to go straight into it?
Yeah, Rachel, would you mind if I apologize that there were no interviews?
All right. Oh, and when were you going to do your cert? Oh, that's later on, right?
That's later for the
Gotcha. Right.
tips
The
and
tips
tricks.
and tricks. I said it right. Okay.
Okay. Hi, and welcome back. This is our DGU segment of the Polite Society podcast. We usually have interviews. I'm sorry, I want to apologize to our listeners. Life has just been too crazy. We have plenty of people we want to bring on the show. I just haven't managed to make the time, get them on, get us organized. It's my fault, not theirs. And thank you to the listeners that have been giving us some good suggestions of people they'd like to hear. Rachel, you have the first DGU.
I sure do. A Madison County, Tennessee homeowner shot a 16-year-old boy who was breaking into his house, wounding the teen, according to the sheriff's office. About 10 a.m. Sunday, the Madison County Sheriff's Office received a 911 call about the burglary in progress in the 1400 block of the Denmark-Jackson Road. The investigation revealed that the homeowner saw a young man walk past his front window, the sheriff's office said in a news release. A short time later, the homeowner heard tapping at the back bathroom window. That's kind of suspicious. Well, he then saw a brick being thrown through the window, and I'd say that's a little more than just merely suspicious.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah. As the burglar was entering the bathroom window, the homeowner shot at him, authorities said. Deputies came across the young man while canvassing the area. He had 2 gunshot wounds to the arm, and he was taken to a local hospital. He was charged with aggravated burglary, and they are still looking for another burglar.
You know, I don't know what I think about that. If I were home alone and it was a 16-year-old kid, would I just, go use physical means before I went to a gun? In hindsight, I can say yes. If I'm an old man, an old woman, or a young woman living alone, and somebody's breaking in your bathroom window, are you really going to go get physical or just go right to a firearm to defend yourself? I guess it makes a little more sense when you think of it that way.
Yeah, and plus a 16-year-old, I mean, some of them are small and some of them, well, it doesn't say how old it was, but, you know, a teenage boy, especially if, you know, depending on what he's wearing, his size may not look like a teenager. He may look older.
That's right. There you go.
And this kid should have been in church 10 o'clock Sunday morning.
I know. It's a big strike against him, right?
Well, and as you know, we should add a new phrase. Nothing bad ever happens at 10 o'clock in church. Go for it. Just work with me here.
Okay.
Ayatollah
of course, the homeowner wasn't there at church either, so. You know,
yeah, that's the.
Maybe he was sick. I'm not sure. I'm not going to speculate here.
On our next DGU, Ayatollah Muhammad was charged with domestic violence on Tuesday. But by Wednesday, the police were removing Muhammad from a home in Locust Fork, Alabama, where his ex-girlfriend lived. Muhammad didn't take the hint. It appears Muhammad walked the 7 miles back to the home to resume his attack. The ex-girlfriend's son was on the scene this time, and the 14-year-old son shot Muhammad when he came at his mother. Muhammad died. The case will be presented to a grand jury, but no charges are expected. Is this a culture issue? I don't know. But it reminds you that if you initiate physical violence, you've opened up a great big can of worms for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I find this story a particularly moving story. I mean, just picturing this 14-year-old kid coming to the defense of his mother.
Yep.
Having the presence of mind, the training. I mean, I don't know if he was necessarily very trained or just, you know, it worked out for him. But, you know, good for him for standing up and doing what it took to protect his mother.
Absolutely.
I hope that's how he sees it, because I'm sure there are some people who want to say that he was rash and violent. It sounds like he had unfortunately seen violence in the home before.
Mm-hmm.
Probably right about that.
Yeah.
Oh well. Well, our next DGU comes to us from Lynn County, Iowa, and I will admit to being a little conflicted about it. After you hear it, you'll understand why. 5 men were seeking to elude police in Lynn County, which is, I think, Cedar Rapids. They were being chased by police when they crashed into a salon resident's front yard and then took off on foot. 2 bystanders, Tim Moore and Scott Eastwood, who lived in the neighborhood, saw the 5 hiding drugs and a firearm in Moore's yard. Eastwood, a licensed concealed carry holder, and Moore then chased them down in a pickup truck. They then were given a false story by the 5, and these guys played along with them, and when they got them in the truck, they held them at gunpoint. Eastwood held them at gunpoint until the cops arrived. When the cops arrived, they took them into custody, and the 5 were charged with interference with official acts with injury on a peace officer. Other charges are pending. My conflict is that just because you have a concealed carry permit doesn't make you an officer of the law. And he wasn't necessarily protecting his family, though. I mean, given that they were in his yard, you could say that was involved in it. So,
yeah.
John, let me paint just a little bit different picture.
Okay.
You know your neighbors are out, there are kids in the area. You watch these 5 crash a pickup truck into your yard or your neighbor's yard. You watch a policeman fall down who's parked and is chasing them, and then you get involved. Slightly different details than what you read. I could read those details into the article when I read it. Does that change your mind a little?
Well, the fact that they had hit a gun doesn't mean you knew they were armed at least portion of the time.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I would have chased after them. That's,
I know.
I think that's the key thing, chasing after them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got to say I don't feel conflicted about it. From the details I know, without further investigation, from knowing these facts, I'd say it doesn't look like these two guys did anything illegal, but I think they were stupid. But thankfully, everything turned out okay. I mean, that's kind of how I see it.
Yep.
But of course, as you say, there can always be little details that we don't know that can completely change, how I would view the story. Moving on to Minnesota, Benjamin Bowden, 34, of Mendota Heights, Minnesota, ended up bloody after he botched a home invasion. That should have been his lesson. However, he then decided to invade the home of 72-year-old Ethel Himes in Ray, a far northern Minnesota town, and he began to choke the elderly lady. Well, her son Brad came upon the scene and he went to get his handgun. He was followed and attacked by Bowden, but he was able to stop the attack by shooting and killing Bowden. No charges have been filed against Mr. Himes. Bowden's family is saying he had a traumatic brain injury as a teen and was a recovering alcoholic who was struggling with powerful migraine headaches and an undiagnosed mental illness. However, this supposed brain injury didn't stop Bowden from graduating both high school and state university with a degree in, you guessed it, psychology.
Oh. I should have put that one all the way up there with the psychiatrists who were commenting on the shooting in Pennsylvania. My mistake.
Exactly where my mind went.
Go.
Wow.
Well, in our next story, robbery is dangerous. Even if there are 4 thieves trying to rob one man, it is dangerous because you never know who is behind the counter of the store you're trying to rob. In this case, 3 men and a getaway driver waited in their white SUV for the store manager to arrive with small bills or change from the bank. They attacked the store manager as he stepped from his car at a Houston convenience store and gas station. And I'm going to butcher this guy's name. Mayura Disanyaki works as a store clerk, but he didn't stand and watch. Instead, he jumped in and beat 3 of the criminals. When he isn't selling coffee and gasoline, he is a semi-professional fighter in mixed martial arts. After the thieves drove off, Mayura beat one of the thieves so that he would stay until the cops arrived.
That just changes the whole new definition of being armed. This guy is always armed, though not with a firearm.
Yeah.
We have the links to each of our news and defensive gun use articles at thepolitesocietypodcast.com. They're there anytime you want to share them with a friend. We'll be right back with a short segment on tips and tricks. Hi, and welcome back. I didn't have a tips and tricks segment from a visiting guest this time, but I wanted to sort of give you a range report of using my SIRT pistol. This is a laser pistol with a resetting trigger. It looks like a Glock 17. I was trying it out last week and just learned so much, but also developed sort of a curriculum from competing over the weekend. Let me give you an example. When you have to shoot, you routinely raise a firearm from cover and acquire a sight picture. Even if you're shooting point shooting, you'll often, at intermediate ranges, lift the gun up so you're looking over the top of the handgun, almost as if it's a short-barreled shotgun. Those are things you are seldom allowed to practice, point shooting, for example, at a range. Let's take it one step further. Some ranges will let you draw, but I've never seen a public range that would let me move and use cover. The problem with my living room isn't that there's no cover, it's that there's too much. And with this SIRT pistol, absolutely safe. It's not a firearm. It's just a laser pointer with a handgun trigger. I can do exactly that. I'm allowed to practice presentation. I'm allowed to move where I have to lower the gun to a low ready and then raise it back up into my sights. That motion, acquiring a sight picture from a low ready after you've just run across the room, is something I can only practice in a few ranges well outdoors. Really, they're dedicated bays, and it's hard to get time to use them that way. Now, Rachel, you live on a farm. You've got some rural areas. You also train at that Tactical Academy, right?
Yes, I do.
So you get more options to do those sort of maneuvers, exercise those skills with live firearms. About the only time I see them, and I'm able to see them, is with either a SIRT pistol or, occasionally when I'll go out to the desert. The interesting thing of this with this SIRT pistol, I've been exercising with a buddy on it about once every 2 weeks or so, and we can invent a scenario to suit the training needs that we've discovered during those 2 weeks. I'm quite impressed by it. Any comments?
Well, I remember interviewing Mike Hughes, who developed the SIRT pistol, and I think it's a wonderful training tool. And I will be buying one.
Good for you.
When it does finally come out in the Smith & Wesson M&P format. Because
Gotcha.
I have an M&P. And it would be more closer to what I would normally be using.
Absolutely.
But, Mike was I think a USPSA competitor as well as a patent attorney, and he wanted something to be able to practice drawing and doing just like you do. A good way to practice dry firing. The only thing he said that it did not give him was the recoil, and well, then you could use regular ammo in regular practice places. But for every day, the SIRT kept his skill level up.
Yeah. And honestly, Rob, yes, I do have access to some pretty fantastic ranges, private ranges, where I can do really any of this stuff. I can practice moving, shooting, cover, concealment, all that good stuff. But still, even with that access, I still see great value in using a SIRT pistol system for dry fire, for everyday at home. I still see great value in that. And I would be very interested to know your scenarios you came up with.
You want me to mention them now, or sometime when we meet? I don't understand your question quite.
Now would be awesome if you wanted to just kind of run us through a little snapshot of what the kind of things that you do.
Okay. One of the things we did was extreme close quarters. And it's one thing to present and deliberately put your support hand against your chest. On the other hand, at close quarters, you often, there's a separate scenario where you have to push someone away to create distance so you could safely draw. I've seen both mimicked in tactical situations. I've never been able, until this weekend, to get a buddy, here, stand right in front of me. I'm going to push you away and then shoot at the target right next to you with this laser pistol. So I get a chance to do both. I've got a guy leaning against me, reaching for my shirt, and I have to push him away to create distance in order to fire. Now, the reason I didn't shoot at him was that the shirt he was wearing, the video recorder wouldn't accurately record the hits on his shirt, so we had a T-shirt draped over the chair back right next to him. It was stationary, therefore the video recorder would record it accurately.
Gotcha. And you bring up another great point. No matter what kind of range you have access to, even in your own backyard, that's the kind of exercise that you really can't practice. with live fire.
I was teasing a guy at a shooting range about that. He goes, "You can do it with Sims, but you won't really want to. It's gonna hurt."
Yeah.
Yeah. Ow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No
But it's
thanks.
excellent real life scenarios that you should be practicing. So good on you for doing that, and I need to do some of that kind of practice too.
Well, you know what was interesting is little things that you and I practice almost silently. But when my friend did it, he yelled at me as he pushed me away. Now, I've known this guy. He's a friend of mine. It startled me and it made me back up. And just those little things that are more realistic.
Yeah.
Who would have thought that we can be more realistic in our living room than we can at a training range? In some ways, we can.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing we did, but the way we set up targets, he has a mirror near his front entryway, and we ended up doing almost a 180 swing, where you'd shoot the target up close, then turn and look all the way across the room to see its reflection in the mirror, and then shoot there. So it was interesting to go from point shooting up close, instinctive, at a target a yard and a half away, to have to go to use sighted fire just to hit the thoracic cavity by shooting through the mirror at a longer distance.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you could get the splits. It was interesting that the splits for point shooting were about 0.3 seconds. That wasn't, even with the 1911 where I had recoil, when I was point shooting the weekend in competition, it was comparable to that, maybe 0.4. So I think that's pretty accurate for a SIRT pistol. Now, aimed fire, where you have to recover from muzzle flip, obviously those would stretch out a little more than what you'd experience with a SIRT pistol.
Uh-huh.
Does that give you a feel for it?
Absolutely. I love your scenarios, and I think that's really helpful to picture those. Y'all are creative. You are very creative in coming up with some excellent training helps.
Okay. Well, we'll go to an advertisement and then come back to close out the show.
Let's do it.
Rachel, do you use a SIRT pistol at all for your training?
I don't. I have a friend who has one, so I've used his some.
Yep.
Appreciate it, but I don't have one.
And one of the reasons I like working with this particular friend is that he has a terrible flinch.
Yeah.
And this, I really don't want to shoot with him till I've run, a couple weeks with him with the SIRT pistol to try and heal that training scar.
Sure.
Okay.
Have you ever done what's called cap and ball?
Yes. I do that to him all the time.
That's so good. I love doing that.
Well, he's going to be at this exercise where we'll have a large number of new shooters in a couple of weeks. Well, about 10 days from now. And I think we'll get him, if we can keep him training with a 22, that'll be great. Okay, anybody care who gets what here?
Doesn't matter to me. I'll take whatever.
Cute. John, do you have anything on your website you want to promote?
No.
Okay.
Most of what I've been doing was about the Palmer decision.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, I do. I take it back. Just
okay.
Shortly.
Then let me. Okay, Rachel, you want to take us in?
Sure, let's do that. Ready? Coming back in 5. Welcome back to the Polite Society podcast. Our final segment includes our listener email discussion. Here's an email we received from a listener in Arizona. I was aware of the NRA and joined a couple of months ago when I decided to support gun ownership and gun rights. I had heard of the Second Amendment Foundation, but had no idea it was as important as the NRA, or, in light of Saturday's court ruling, I had no idea of the important work it is doing and the results it is getting until now. Therefore, seeing its monumentally effective endeavors, I joined the SAF yesterday. I encourage everyone to do the same. It's the most important issue of our time here in the USA, and if we want to keep ourselves educated, safe, and free Americans, we all need to support those who can best accomplish the tasks at hand. And it's surprisingly inexpensive to become a member. 5 years for only $50 to get our constitutionally protected rights restored? It's the real deal, folks. Regards, Ken Silva, Phoenix, Arizona.
John, you and I have been to their different events. The NRA, GOA, and SAF, they're all very different organizations.
They are, and SAF has a different focus than the NRA, and GOA has a different focus than either of the other two.
Yep. Your money is not misspent for any of them.
No.
I'd like to give a shout out and thanks to Greg Tabor and Anthony Lucafo for their news and DGU tips. It is great to have you guys at our backs. Thanks again. The Polite Society download app is out on Amazon for Android, and the iPhone app is in iTunes. It's called Podcast Box. Both are located by our old name, Politics and Guns. Hot links are in the show notes.
Also, please check out Kathy Jackson's Cornered Cat training classes. Go to corneredcat.com for more classes and details. Rob, any new posts from Slowfax you want to mention?
I do. By the time this episode goes online, I'll have another article out that compares how New Jersey lets millionaire sports celebrities go free after they assault someone, and then how New Jersey jails a single mom who drove through the state with a legal firearm. That's third world justice right there in New Jersey. The article will be up in Clash Daily, at Amaland, and at my blog. John, how about Only Guns and Money? What do you want to tell our listeners about?
Well, I've read through Judge Scullin's decision in Palmer versus D.C., and there were a number of things that struck me. Number one, it's something that Alan Gura has stressed many times, is that expansion of Second Amendment rights is a building process. And if you read the decision, he refers to Heller, McDonald, then goes to Peruta, Ezell, Moore versus Madigan in Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
So all cases where we won that helped build the process.
Mm-hmm.
Number two is that dissents in past cases are almost as important as majority opinions. He quotes from a dissent in the Third Circuit in Drake versus Filco, which we had talked to people from the New Jersey Second Amendment Society about, and it was talking about bearing, he says, to speak of bearing arms solely within one's home not only would conflate bearing with keeping in derogation of the court's holding that the verbs codified distinct rights, but it would also be awkward usage given the meaning assigned the terms by the Supreme Court. In other words, keeping arms and bearing arms are different.
Mm-hmm.
And then he quotes from Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So, but even where we've had losses, for example, Kachowski, New York, Drake from New Jersey, Woolard from Maryland,
Mm-hmm.
even though they failed to overturn those states may carry, the rationales for granting may carry in those states, they still helped them reach the conclusion that the Second Amendment guarantees a right to bear arms outside the home. And then, as we've noted earlier, it's really significant that this decision applied to both residents and non-residents of the District of Columbia. So, but past cases are important, and they help us get to where we want to be, even if we don't win. If we don't win along the way, it can still help us win in the future.
I did hear somebody mention, talking about those cases, that they were very tired listening to the political responses from the D.C. City Council and the D.C. representative, the non-voting representative in the legislature. They said they talked again and again about the dangers that gun owners presented to society. And he said, you know, I didn't hear them talk at all about the victims and the fate awaiting unarmed victims in the district. That was interesting.
Yeah.
Attention, Polite Society podcast listeners. How many of y'all have actually taken a moment to check out The Shooters Club by Bob Mayne and Ben Branham? Take a minute, check it out. For $75 a year or $6.25 a month, you get 24/7 access to some fantastic training and audio podcasts that, well, you can't get anywhere else. Subscribing from the link in our show notes helps Bob and Ben. It also helps us here at the Polite Society podcast. So, hey, check it out.
Well, that wraps up another episode of the Polite Society podcast. Until the weekend show,
stay safe.
Be aware.
And we'll see you down the road.
I'd like to mention our advertisers: ABN Surplus, Concealment Solutions, Crusader Weaponry, the New Jersey Second Amendment Society, and the Firearms Safety Institute. Do we have any comments on YouTube?
I didn't see any.
No chat room warriors at all. Nothing on the live page either, huh?
Nothing on the live page.
It must be a busy Wednesday in the real world. Well, let me stop the broadcast. Thank you for watching.